So I took my kid to Toronto's Eaton Centre the other day. It's this huge, fancy shopping mall downtown, all glittering now with holiday lights, of course. But I felt a little bit internally split because the night before I had been reading in Marx about how commodities become magical objects when their origins get hidden behind the mystery of money. So here I am walking with my kid, enjoying one of the closest social relations I've ever known in my life. And we're walking through a space designed to erase social relations. Now, by the way, this mall visit wasn't in our plan. We'd gone downtown to sell and donate some books, and it turned into a walking adventure. And the Eaton Centre was like in view of the bookshop. So it's Toronto's most iconic mall, 5 stories, 250 stores and food spots, a glass cathedral roof, a water fountain. It's at Toronto's Dundas Square, which is not unlike Times Square in New York City in its contradictions over time. So, downtown luxury is surrounded by rooming houses. So capital casts a long shadow over these spaces of destitution that it's always trying to gentrify. So the kid is 9 and has never been to a big mall. It was very impressive. Sparkling Christmas trees, piped carols, and overabundance of captivating shops. Crushes of cheerful and grumpy, bustling people. And I'm of two minds. Like, I want him to have fun and to be absorbed in this embarrassment of riches. And I also wonder how it's hitting him. Now, we do have an ongoing discussion of capitalism in the home. So the basic idea of labor exploited for profit that turns into capital that can exploit more labor, this loop is a familiar note of conversation. Not because I've wanted to teach ideology, but because both of our kids developed an early sensitivity to the question of why there are rich people and poor people. And there really is no explanation for that difference that doesn't ultimately come back to legalized exploitation. But there's always something abstract about that conversation, something abstract about exploited labor to a kid who isn't doing that labor or maybe watching other people do it. And I realized walking through the mall that that abstraction was part of what Marx was getting at with the mystification of the retail space, where the factory behind all the lights, all the products, is the farthest thing from mind. So you're in a place where not only do you not think of where these shiny products come from, but you can't because there are too many of them. And any cognitive capacity you have for telling one from the other is spent in comparing prices between them or evaluating them against each other and the universal commodity of money. So the mall is the anti-factory, the halo over the wage slave space, the radiant heavenly cathedral that hides the origins of its splendor in its foundations, that hides the lives of those that give rise to it. Lives of people who can't afford to live in Toronto, who can't afford to buy the products that they make. Now, I didn't lay all of this on my kid, of course. I think there is great imaginative value in being in spaces of human excess and creativity. Churches can be like this. And I also think that the central conceit of Christmas, that the child receives gifts for no reason at all from Santa, who is unseen and seemingly everywhere and nowhere, this is an important ritual of grace or generosity that's disconnected from judgment and merit. Like Santa is the grown-up whose generosity has no strings attached. So for now, the contradiction that is visible for the kids is enough to take in. So outside the mall on the sidewalk, there are unhoused people. We can offer them some money as we start the journey home. And no kid, I believe, can cross over that threshold from bounty to houselessness without thinking, how do these conditions coexist? My kid said, it's just so bad that they just can't have homes. It's not fair. To me, I think good anti-fascist parenting means quietly supporting that moment of contradiction. When a huge cathedral-like building takes up a city block and stocks hundreds of millions of dollars in inventory and records 3 billion in annual sales, I looked it up. There is no universe in which it makes sense that someone is sitting hungry outside against the wall. I don't think any kid can accept this unless they have specifically been taught to. So that contradiction is thick, and it just has to cook. So on the way home, I was thinking that someday, if the whole idea of magic and money and what it conceals comes up somehow, I might propose a thought experiment that to understand today's world and the politics and values that run it, you have to be able to walk through the Eaton Center and realize that brick by brick and tile by tile, there is a factory somewhere manufacturing all of the things that glitter. And that factory is noisy, it's filled with bad air, it's cold in the winter, hot in the summer. You couldn't be walking through the Eaton Center if that factory or multiple factories didn't exist and were also full of people just like you making things on your behalf. But this has to come at a moment in which the kid won't feel guilty or demoralized by the scenario, the condition. Ideally, it should feel relieving, like I don't have to invest and believe in this fantastical world. I can enjoy human creativity, but also know that this version of it will not fulfill me. Because that's the other thing I'm trying to hold at the same time, the natural disappointment in the object. I think popular parenting culture sometimes sidles up to this point with expressions of amazement or fatigue at how much stuff accumulates. But I think it takes a little extra bravery to push over the edge and say, all of these conventions of consumption are illusory and don't really serve us. Because that's worth it going that far. Because everyone needs to admit at some point that the only thing that lasts is the love we embody for each other.